I know you're all chomping at the bit to hear Bob Earl, and I'm going to hold on a sec. But I'm going to take 2 minutes about a Bob Earl story that affected my life and caused me indirectly to be here today. And Bob Earl does not know this story. He may remember parts of it and maybe not, and that's not important. 2 years ago, an Al-Anon sister of mine said, "Have you ever heard of Bob Earl?" And I said, "No." She said, "Well, here, borrow these tapes." And there were some tapes that Bobby had made years ago at a AA retreat, a men's stag retreat. And I sat in my little apartment and I listened and I loved them. And 2 days later, another Al-Anon sister said, "Have you ever heard of Bobby Earl?" And I said, "Funny you should mention it. So-and-so just loaned me some tapes and I loved them." She said, "Well, he's doing a 2-day workshop down by the airport in a couple of weeks." I said, "Oh gosh, that's great." And I gave her some money to send in an application for me for the 2-day thing. And I showed up on the Saturday, and I was right in the front row. And Bobby, we did some inner child exercises. And I've always been real quick. I was real quick as a little boy, so I did them quick, and I always got in trouble. But by the time I got to that workshop, I was a little teeny bit smarter. I knew a little more. So I raised my hand. I said, "Bobby, when I was little, I'd get in trouble because I'd finish quick. I may cry when I say this, but it's okay with me." And Bobby said, "Is there anyone else in the front row with Russell who's also quick?" And a blonde woman said, "Me." He said, "Why don't you two sit together? And when you finish, you can talk." And I cried. And then Bobby said, "Wouldn't it have been amazing had our parents and teachers been like that, had they heard us when we needed to be heard?" And that moment was a powerful moment in my life, and the story's not finished. Thank you for that part. The next day, I go back looking for more Bobby Earl. And Bobby Earl was gone. And John James was there. If you remember this story, I had never seen a flyer. I had given my friend some money to send in for the event. And during that one-day workshop with John James, a grief recovery workshop, something else happened. I almost can't tell you what. Almost like the things I'd been looking for and searching for in the 2 days were starting to come clear to me. And I met John James and I got his card. And the next day on the Monday, I called up the number 650-1234 and a voice said, "Grief Recovery Institute." I said, "John James, please." And he said, "Speaking." I said, "My name is Russell Friedman, and I was at that thing at the airport yesterday, and I just wanted to thank you." He said, "You're welcome." And then a voice came out of my mouth and said, "And I want to volunteer to work for you." And I looked around my apartment, and I was the only one there. And John kind of hemmed and hawed like he'd heard a voice from somewhere too. I said, "Well, can you come up tomorrow? We'll talk." And I've been there ever since. For a year and a half, I was a volunteer. While I was still a volunteer, I was the executive director. Unpaid, but I did a lot. I traveled all over. I now deliver grief recovery seminars. My life has changed so much, and I credit Bobby for having made tapes years ago of telling the truth about himself. And the little event that happened that first morning with him where he heard me. I love you, Bobby. Bob Earl!
Okay. Hi. I hate I like to, because I talk with my hands. When I'm talking like this, no one can hear me, and then I come back like this. Okay. Stay at the podium. Control, yeah. Wow, the courageous that lasted the whole weekend. I'm impressed. Thank you, Russell. That was a touching story. God, it just gets me. We hurt so bad, and we spend our whole life pretending we don't. I mean, that's what this whole weekend's all about. We were hurt very bad as children. and have spent every day since pretending that's not true. Doing everything we can so no one knows how bad we hurt. That's it. We have a lot of adrenaline addicts here. I love to watch them with those automatic doors, because they get to the door before it opens, They're going so fast, and they hit that sucker and it has not opened. And there's that moment there of complete chaos. And if it was their own door at home, I know some would go through. They wouldn't wait the last second. I'm sorry I'm late, but I was told too. So while you were all down here waiting for me, I was, shaving and taking a shower and enjoying myself, showing my baby daughter how to use the new Crayolas and giving her my badge with my speaker ribbon before I left. Okay, the child finds God. It's interesting to talk about God at the end of a weekend where you've talked about compulsion and obsession and addiction and shame and penis size and just basically everything on the planet. And then suddenly someone says, let's talk about God, and where does God fit in that mix? And so I'm going to just approach it from about 14 different angles, if you'll allow me to. I think the difficulty as adults is that you show me an adult out of a dysfunctional system, or a less than nurturing system, whatever terminology, or uninformed system, whatever terminology you want to use. And I will show you someone who, as a rule, their spirituality is identical to their pathology. Meaning, quite simply, that their God is in a direct twin of one of their parents, their mother or their father. That at the core of what they believe, that is how they see this God and how they relate to this God, either as their mother or their father. There's an ACA men's stag in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They start the Lord's Prayer with Our Creator, because so many men in that meeting have so many painful, horrible issues with Father that they found it was really lousing up the entire prayer. So they just threw out the word Father and took the word Creator, and it's really quite beautiful. Sometime when you're alone, you might just try changing it to Our Creator. The ladies might enjoy that one better too. Get a little balance in all this. Oh yeah, I'd like to put my plug in for Sierra Tucson too. Whenever anybody calls me about where to go, I always say go there. I think they have the best program and the best people that I'm aware of right now in the country. So if you're looking to get the doors kicked in, this is a process of getting through the denial. I mean, the beginning of this recovery process, whether you're looking for God or the love of your life or the job of your life or just yourself, the initial steps that you're going to have to take is to go through the denial. Some people choose to go through the denial a little tiny chip piece crack at a time, and others just prefer to kick down the door. So if you're looking to kick down the doors and get on with this process, a really good inpatient, 21, 28-day inpatient is the way to kick down the doors. I mean, it's not a cure-all, man. It ain't going to fix you. And most of the people you know, when you get out of there, aren't going to like you. So, you know. But remember, we only associate with people who like us before we go in, see? So then you know they're not going to like us when we come out, because we're going to be saying no. The thing about all this stuff, I guess, is when I'm in touch with some stuff too, I'll get through that and then I'll get on with this, is we work so hard to create a persona, a person, to rectify or erect a personality that protects us from the truth, from you knowing the truth about me and me knowing the truth about me. And once I get that erected, I don't like to tamper with it. And the interesting thing about this process, this recovery process, where I see a lot of people get in trouble and get really confused, is you somehow think when you start to do this work, you're going to feel better. I got a disappointment for you. it would be as if you lived in a village somewhere, and because everybody in the village walked the same way, you sort of look like this. Well, everybody you are surrounded by looks the same way. So they don't notice anything unusual about you, and you don't notice anything unusual about them. But somebody comes along and says, hey, buddy, come over here for a minute. Takes you out of the village down to a little meadow and turns you over to a chiropractor. Right? So, in a matter of minutes, this happens. Hurts like hell. Minute you stand me up, boy, it hurts, and I want to go back down there. I like it. I have never seen this. This is very big. I don't like very big. I like very small. Let me get back in here and get condensed. So part of what transpires when you start to do this work is you're going to get really uncomfortable because you're moving out. As horrible as the position may be you're in right this minute, you are comfortable with it to some degree or another. And you're going to move out of that comfort into the unknown, and for most of us, the unknown is always uncomfortable. Now, moving into the unknown is a lovely place to have God come along. And God seems to get easily lost in the process of recovering from dysfunctional family issues. And I think the reason for that, and I'm speaking from personal experience and having lost him, and I think part of the reason for that is, for me, was I spent my whole life without a self. There was no me. By the time I was 2, I was already been beaten enough that whatever there was of the original spark in me as a child, God's child, was gone. So from that point on, for my whole life, I had no self, no sense of self, no self-esteem. There was no self, okay? Well, my God, I get into doing a little of this family work, and after a few months with my therapist and on the couch and some crying, some feelings start to come up and a little anger, wow, there starts to be a self. Man, I never had a self before. This is all right. And I, too, lost all my friends, because they weren't thrilled with the new self either, And then I got really working on the self, peeling away, ripping out these layers and ripping out doing the grieving and getting the anger work out and beating the pillows and screaming and crying and yelling and, and primal screaming, anything I could do to just get loose, and get bigger, and enlarge my world, so I get all this work, and I'm self, and wow, self. Oh, this is terrific. I'm coming alive. I can just feel it, and pissing off everybody in the process. And then one day I'm sitting around and I've got about 8 crises going in my life at the same time. And the kind you have no control over. My wife's dad dies. This is all in 6 weeks. We leave our home to never return, one we loved. My wife's dad dies, my mother dies, and a 20-year-old stepdaughter is found dead in an alley from an overdose. This is in 6 weeks, okay? Now I've got a stepfather in a board and care home, and we've got to get my wife's mom out of California to a better climate because she's dying from emphysema. And so we've got to leave our home. We got stuff coming from 14 sides, And I'm busy trying taking care of it. God, call the lawyers and fix the thing and get the trust set and do this, call the fuck and get this and that and, do. And, oh, God, go to bed at night. And, oh, geez, I'm tired. I'm really tired. Get up in the morning. God, I'm really tired. And finally, one day, a voice says to me, Bob, why don't you turn a little of this over? You're running out of stuff here. I say to myself, that sounds like a great idea. And I looked around for God, and he was gone. I had lost him. In the process of finding self, I had completely and absolutely lost God. Now, I say to myself, Bob, it's time. It's time. You need your Father. You must go home. And the minute I say that to myself, I get absolutely terrified. Because part of me says, no, we can't go back to God, because if you go back to God, you're going to lose self. You can't have self and God at the same time. Make your choice, Bob. What do you want? Do you want to be a human being? Do you want to have self, feelings, be alive? Or do you just want to sit, Bob, and go, It is decision time. And that began a process for me of integrating all of the metaphysical, meditation, spiritual work, reading, everything I'd done for 25 years of my life at that point, and into the self. And it was a very hard and very painful process. And what made it so hard is that constant nagging fear that I would lose self. The closer I would get to God, I would lose self. That somehow I'd give up the power that I found, that I had looked for and lost when I was a child. So this process of melding these two together, integrating the two, for a great many of us seems to be a really, really difficult process. I don't know why it is. Don't even want to waste 5 minutes trying to figure out why it is. I just know that right when I was in the very middle of this, my best friend of 25 years in recovery was visiting me in Arizona, and we're sitting down for a quiet cup of tea after everybody has settled down and the house is quieted, and I said, well, what's happening? He says, I am in the biggest single spiritual crisis of my recovery. I said, oh. You want to tell me about it? No, I didn't say that. I said, me too. What the fuck's going on, man? Is it cosmic, or is it after 25 years you just go berserk right off? What's happening, you know? And he said, all I know is that anything I ever knew or held to be a truth about God no longer works in my life today at any level. I said, oh, all right, let's talk. And we did, and we had a great talk. And we found that anything that had to do with spiritual isolation no longer fit our lives. No going to the mountaintop for 40 days, no going to the cave for fasting and meditation, no going away anywhere. That was not where our God was and not where our God wanted us. That it was about life was meant to be a pleasure, and our role and function is among our brothers and our sisters in healthy interdependency, which we have been given as humans in order to survive life on this planet. We need each other. What the problem with codependency is that it's an unhealthy dependency. And healthy interdependency can become something that we push out of our lives mistakenly. You know, there's a real... I've said for years, the first big trap, of course, you fall into is that you got to learn not to try and figure out in advance whether or not what you're about to do for someone is human kindness or codependency. Because somebody could die while you're trying to work that out. Some guy could be laying there bleeding, and you could be saying, oh, Jesus, I'd really like to help you. You know, I really want to help you, you know, but... but I've been helping people all my goddamn life. You know, I mean, I have no sense of self. I lost myself. I don't know how I feel till my husband comes home from work. I mean, I don't know. I just can't, you know. Help the poor guy. It's all right. You will never know in front whether it's codependency or act of human kindness. You'll only know after the fact. So do it. And if it was an act of human kindness, afterwards you'll feel terrific. If it was an act of codependency, afterwards you will feel ripped off. It's that simple. Okay, let's talk about this child and God. Does anyone get confused about the inner child? May I have a show of hands of people who are confused about the inner child? May I have a show of hands of those who have a sense that there's more than one inner child? Oh. The thing that I discovered about myself as an adult or as the victim or survivor of child abuse is that the abuse and my defenses to abuse were piled in me in layers. Recovery was about peeling off painfully each layer. Right? Have you ever, those of you who've been working on these issues for a while, have you ever noticed you work through everything? Right? No, I mean really, you've pretty much gone through it all. You've cleaned up all your old loves and all the ones that died, and I mean you've done it all. And you kind of go out and you have a nice glass of soda and a salad and take a walk down the street and around the corner and it's all there again. You know, like in a raincoat. Yeah. That's how you got away. Yeah? It's just at a next layer, that's all. It's the same stuff at the next layer. When I learned to grieve about the death of my wife who died in recovery, the initial grieving was very sad and very painful. 11 months later, when I got to the tail end of the grieving of her, the loss of her, I spent 3 days locked up in my apartment, alone in the corner, curled up in a ball, crying so hard my insides felt like I had lost a street fight, like someone had kicked me with steel-toe boots. Now, I would have told you 6 months prior to that moment that I had done my grieving. Because I had cried and I had sobbed and I had felt the pain in my chest. And I thought, my God, someone who loved me, who really, honest to God, loved me is no longer here. So, God. And I can't say anything to them and I can't do anything and it can't be made right. And I went through all that pain, but it was only one layer. So, as the adult doing this work, I've had to peel off the layers. I'm convinced now, when you get down to this inner child is under the same kind of layer. You have a child in there. I mean, I've done this magical child letter writing exercise that Wayne Kritzberg developed for a couple of years now, workshops. And you get everybody all primed about did he do it here at this conference? All right, it's beautiful, the magical child, and the music, and wonderful, all this. And I've had people, come up with letters from a kid that was furious. It was nothing loving in the letter. You goddamn son of a bitch, you know. You've been doing the same shit to me for 15 goddamn years. You're no better than me. I mean, just, Crayola just right off the paper, right? And these people are stunned because they were going to meet this angelic, beautiful, wonderful, bright-eyed, bubbly child. And instead, they've got, exorcists going on, right? Little kid in there, his head spinning and green bile's coming out. Well, of course. That child is just a couple of layers above the true spiritual child. That child is one of the little tiny... See, there's really a mistake in the idea when the inner child finds God. See, the inner child is hooked to God. Doesn't have to look. Its connection has been since the child was created and exists now. But that child has gone into hiding. And in order to protect itself, inside it has created the same number of monsters that we have created outside. For me, as a kid growing up, I created my adolescent. I'll share this story. It's got anything to do with God? Yeah, sure it does. Okay. Just trying to keep myself on track. I have a real habit of going left, in a talk, man. Gone. When I'm on a TV talk show or radio talk show, if I get a weak interviewer, they're screwed, man, because I'm gone. I'm talking about starving children in Ethiopia. I'm like, clear out of here, man. They can't even remember why they asked me on the show, Yeah, okay, well, let's bring everything current. I like to be current with everybody about what's going on in my life anyway. So a few months ago, not very many months ago, I had this dream that I'm walking along some streets down to a dock, really a wharf, down low, one of these low docks that you bring little boats into. And there's somebody walking with me. And this boat comes up to the dock, and it's one of those beautiful old 1935 Chris Crafts inboard speedboats with the red mahogany wood and the leather seats and the American flag on the back and no steering wheel. Oh, that's only the beginning. That's nothing. Wait. So, these little waves are lapping over the side of this boat. And I say to this person who's with me, I said, Jesus, if those waves don't start, somebody doesn't do something, the boat is going to sink. Now, we needed the boat to get across the lake. And suddenly the boat sank. And I said to the guy with me, I said, look, if we can just get a diver to go down there and open the valve in the boat, let the water out, we can get the boat up. And then we can get back across the lake. And the person with me thought that was a good idea and that he could get a diver, that would be possible. And then I woke up. Dreams and dream analysis have not been part of my process until very, very recently. Big part of my wife's process, major, probably, the foundation of her process. So I wake up and I'm telling her this dream because usually I don't even remember my dreams. And she said, well, what I do is I always take the one thing in the dream that's illogical when you were awake, but it was logical when you were asleep, i.e. the diver to open the valve because the boat won't come up. So I said, oh, God, yes, right? I try to get this spiritual stuff hooked up. I need somebody to go deep. Who the hell's right? Great. I tell her so. Anyway, so now I feel better. I understand the dream. About a week later, we're back in Santa Fe. And I'm with a therapist who's in front of me. I'm in seeing him to see him. And I want to talk to him about this dream because I got stuff going on I don't understand. So I tell him the dream. He says, who's with you? Who's the guy with you? And I He says, well, buddy, and he says, close your eyes and let's go back one. And he says, okay, now who's that standing there with you? And I turned and I looked, and I started to sob. I said, my God, it's me as an adolescent. And he says, well, what's so sad? I said, this is an adolescent I never saw before. I said, this boy is beautiful. He's tall and he's good looking. And his eyes are filled with life. And the wind's blowing. I said, it's almost like I see him in a magazine photo from back in Cape Cod in the 30s, standing on a dock next to the boat with the flag flying, and the whole world is his. The whole world is his. And life is meant to be lived. Not observed, but lived. And he's ready to live it. And I said, all my life you said the word adolescent to me, and the only thing I could think of was the adolescent that I had created to save my life. And he was a horrible son of a bitch. I mean, they threw him out of school. He punched out teachers. I mean, he's been in goddamn drug wars. He's in and out of institutions. He's been locked up in nut houses. I spent 6 months learning how to walk backwards in paper slippers on Thorazine, I mean... Well, that's the open back ones, and not lose them. It's an art, man. If you got nothing else to do all day long, it's a contest, Anyway. But anyway, you say adolescent to me, and that's what came to mind. This worthless kid. Failed at school. They threw him out of school. I mean, he was a problem. He had an attention deficit. I mean, he just was awful. And very angry, and not a pleasant person. I never saw this other boy. I never saw this other beautiful, beautiful boy. So Fred says, well, it's time to make him part of you. He is your diver. He's the one that's here to take you to God, to the higher self. Because he knows. He believes. He believes. And I looked at this kid and he believed. He was gorgeous. Nobody had damaged him. He was gorgeous. So we did the process of putting them together. Yeah, good stuff. I love it. So I started doing these conferences so I could stop paying for therapy. The rest of these people use notes. I guess they're okay. Shit, I don't know. Thank you all. So anyway, the point I'm trying to get to with all this is this. As I had created the adolescent as my protector, because he was, let me tell you, the child beating and all that shit stopped. My old man disappeared off the planet. A lot of things happened. When I got big and mad, things changed. When I got big and mad and got a gun, things changed even more. All right? But that's how I protected myself. Nobody got close enough to see how bad I hurt. Nobody got close enough to see how afraid I was. Nobody got close. You didn't want to get close. Unless you were as crazy as I was, and it was a match made in heaven, of course. This is not a relationship talk, Bob. Get back to the point. Okay. So, just as I created this guy to save my life, and he saved my life, I'm very grateful to that adolescent. That adolescent is the reason that I am still here today. See, that adolescent went after you. Without him, I might have sat in a garage and turned on the engine and said goodbye like so many kids do, or I might have put a gun in my mouth and blown my brains out, or I might have not done my chemistry correctly, OD'd myself and said goodbye to the planet. But that tough-ass little adolescent was a survivor. And he did survive, and I'm deeply grateful to him. Deeply grateful. So, my child inside has done the same creation of children over and above the top of him as I have done outside as an adult. I'm totally convinced of this now. So you're not only going to deal with ripping off layers as an adult when you're trying to find the self. When you get inside to the child, you're going to have to find that the first child probably you'll meet is not the core child. Not the beautiful, magical child whose connection to God is pure. It's a child who maybe is angry at God. Furious. If you're God and if you're powerful and if you love me, how in the hell could you have left me in that situation? Kid may want to know that. May have to get mad at God. You may have to let that kid get really, really mad at God. Write horrible things about God in Crayolas. Because if you want to get to the child underneath, you got to get through this one. You know, it's like the old joke, you know, you want to get to him, you got to come through me. Well, it's like the little kid's got a kid in there saying, hey, you want to get to him, you got to come through me. And the head is spinning and the green vial kind of, you know. Because, let's go to the flip side of this. When our baby was born, 32 months ago, or whatever it was, 32 months ago, my wife's mother had enough foresight to pay for a nurse to give us a hand the first 2 or 3 weeks we got her home, because she knew we didn't really know anything about what to do with her once we got her home. Although we had read every book written, you know, in a pile like this, but suddenly there was a real, honest-to-God, breathing, crying, needy human being right here who needed attention. So, excuse me.
This is the end of side A. Please turn the cassette over to begin side B.
So we love this nurse. She was great, and she put a lot of our fears aside, and I mean, she was great, and she helped fix the meals and taught us everything about the baby. And the baby was big when she was born. She was like 9'9", so she was really sturdy. You know, we didn't feel like we had this fragile thing. We had this little brick, you know, at home. So there wasn't that fear like, oh God, or something's going to break. You know, she was like, so very solid. So in her time with us, this nurse learned a little bit about us and about me and the things I'm interested in and about my wife. Anyway, she ran into us, I don't know where, it must have been at church. And she told us the story. She said she knew we would want to know. She had been with another mother, with another baby, a couple of months prior to this story. By this time, our daughter's a few months old, 8 months old, 10 months old, something like that. And they had a little girl, little baby girl, and they had a 3-year-old little baby boy. And as far as I could tell from everything she said, this is really an informed home this child was being brought up in. Highly functional system. And the little guy knew where babies came from, and he had been talked to, and he had been taken in to hear the heartbeat, you know, when they first heard the heartbeat of the baby, and he'd seen the pictures, and everything that could be done had been done, and he was there for the birth of the baby, and I mean, he was part of all of it, so he understood it was nothing to shove him out. It's all family, all unit, all really beautiful. But as she was sitting in the kitchen one day with the mother, And the little guy just kind of went marching, just real intent, right across the living room, right into the nursery. And they looked at each other and they thought, God, he really knows and he really understands, but just in case he's going into, say, look, my mom's here, when is yours going to show up, They thought they'd go see what he was up to. They went to the nursery door where they stood, according to Joy, for 15 minutes while he stood by the bassinet. 3 years old, not saying a word. Now, for any of you who have not been around a 3-year-old lately, to stand in one spot 15 seconds borders on record time, much less 15 minutes. Finally, the little baby girl in the bassinet opens her eyes, and the minute she opens her eyes, the little guy looks down at her and says, "Tell me about God, please. I'm almost 3 now, and I forgot a lot." Tell me about God. I'm almost 3. I forgot a lot. Now there's your child. You know what? The pure child whose connection is perfect. He doesn't wonder about God, doesn't doubt about God. Just wants to recall what he forgot because he's been busy learning about babies being born. Got sidetracked. Wants to go back to that. Wants to go back to that. That's the child. Now, so when we start to talk about the inner child in God, that's the child we're talking about. It's finding that child. It really has nothing to do with that child finding God. That child and God are partners and have been partners since birth. That child's belief and faith is absolute. Its trust is implicit. That child's capacity for risk and spontaneity is endless. Because the love that child is embraced in is unconditional. Unconditional. And that child understands unconditional love. So the process here is not about trying to teach a child to find God. It's about finding the child that is resting in God's arms. And when that connection is made, then I believe we're complete. Absolutely complete. It's the power of children in one level, although they are so needy on so many levels, their power on other levels is staggering. Absolutely staggering. We have another friend back where we live. She sat with her baby daughter, who was not quite 2 years old, in her arms in a commune high in the mountains of Colorado. And she was sobbing and crying, and her tears were just pouring down on this baby as she was saying, "God, I am so sorry that I am your mother, and I am so sorry. I'm even sorrier your father is your father, and I'm sorry we gave birth to you in this goddamn commune, and I'm sorry about the drugs, and I'm sorry about the dirt, and I'm sorry about the cold, and I'm sorry about the pain, and I wished I could do this over." And this not yet 2-year-old little girl looked at her and she said, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." Okay, I'm here to help you. My power, her power, see, she was in the power. The magical power, the magical power. One of the greatest things I have seen in a long time is there's this drawing of Santa Claus on a roof with a sack of toys on his back, about to climb into a chimney. And it very simply says underneath, "Believe." So,
while on one hand you can get the perception that this process of recovery from dysfunctional family issues is about becoming adult, it's also about believing in Santa Claus. That's as critical part of this process as the other. This process is not about becoming what most of us think is emotionally healthy. It's not about being neat and tidy and quiet and polite. It's about wearing one red sock, one green sock, blue pants, a yellow shirt, a flower in your hair, and going to the board of directors meeting of your fucking corporation. You know. And saying, I don't know, this is what I felt like wearing today. Can we get done with this? I've got to be down at the playground, you know. I'm meeting my wife at, I don't know, you know, the daycare center where I don't know what. But, you know, there's a real thing to start to try and, it's like we've spent our whole lives creating people in order to survive our childhood, and then we get into recovery and we're sort of trying to create a recovered person. Yeah? Instead of just getting really sloppy, you know, how do you feel? Oh, God, you're terrible, man, really awful. I feel pretty good. I have some pain, but it's not severe. I've had a little sadness today, but nothing to keep me from, you know, getting through. Come on, you know, just grab onto the other person and go, oh, God, I can't. See, that's recovery. That's what it's about. And when you can recover that adult like that, it's very easy to find the child that believes in Santa Claus. Because that's a safe environment for a child that believes in Santa Claus. Intellectual environments are not safe for children that believe in Santa Claus. They need to be in the feeling environment of wonder and awe. And then the kid goes, oh, okay. Then to these children that the child has built on top, the child goes, out of the way, guys. It's looking good up here now. It's about time. I've been waiting 50 goddamn years. Yeah. Okay, so. How did I get back to this kid that believes in God, that's connected with God? Well, the process was an interesting process. One of the things I had to do is change all my concepts about God. Someone who helped me do that is some of the writings of Matthew Fox. Not Emmett, but Matthew. A few people here know. How many people here know who Matthew is and what he's about? Okay, a few do. Matthew Fox is a Catholic priest, is a theologian. Not particularly popular with the church lately. He set about digging through the old writings and the old books and the old stuff, doing what theologians do, being a good theologian. And when he got all done, he wrote a paper to Rome saying they made a mistake. Life is not about original sin, it's about original blessing. All those things written that put it in the role of original sin were not out of the days of the Essenes or out of the days of Jesus, but out of the handwritings of a monk who was locked up in an old castle somewhere, and I can prove it because all the phraseology is identical with his, and he was nuts. The Catholic Church being a highly spontaneous institution, reacted poorly to this information. They have a cardinal whose name is Ratzinger, who is head of their Gestapo hit squad. And Ratzinger, he was so thrilled with this information that he called all the bishops, or a few of the bishops in this country, and said, we want you to find 3 of your best theologians and go over everything Matthew did. So they did. They found the 3 brightest young theologians that the Catholic Church had to offer in this country, and they went to work going over everything Matthew had gone over. They got all done, and they wrote a letter to Rome saying, sorry, as far as we can tell, he's right. The church has a way of dealing with this kind of truth. They silenced him. He gave his first talk about 4 months ago in Phoenix. He opened his talk by saying, as I was saying 14 months ago when I was so rudely interrupted, but to just overly simplify a great man's works and writings, he's saying in essence, look, guys, we're it. We are one of God's finest creations. I mean, he's really proud of us. And life is a blessing. It's a gift, and it's meant to be a blessing. It's meant to be lived till its fullest. It's meant to be lived in joy. And it's meant to be lived with us in aiding each other in any way we need to aid each other to make life more bountiful, more beautiful, and more wonderful. It's like, have fun. And he too writes about it. It's not about retreating and about isolating and thousands of hours of isolated prayer or meditation. It's about being out among the people and being part of this great life that has been given us to enjoy. And he's got one, there's, God, it has a name. I can't, what the hell? Anybody know? I mean, the whole theory has a creation theology, right? Thank you very much. And one of the first books was Musical, Magical, Mystical Bear, right? So anyway, I got into his work and I got into his writings and I got into ripping out the old concepts, you know? And I started to think, well, what if he's right? I mean, let's take a flyer here, Bob. What if this guy's right? I mean, what if we were really put here to have a good time? That certainly wasn't the concept in my home. You know. My home it was cow dung from the gate, and it was cow dung on the way out, and cow dung in between. Meant to be that way, and if anything came easy, was bad, dishonest, sinful, or would be taken away from you. But there was no one in my home that promoted a belief that said, we're here to have a good time. No one in my home believed you're supposed to enjoy what you do. When I do workshops, I have a spontaneous written little exercise, and one of the things that I ask people to do is list 10 things they like to do. 90% of the people, this is everywhere I go, it doesn't matter on the size of the workshop, 90% of the people do not list what they do for a living. 90%! When confronted without having a chance to get prepared and having 4 minutes to put down quickly 10 things they like to do not put down what they do for a living. Well, now you got to start thinking about this stuff. See, I had to start thinking about this stuff. Well, if I'm put here to have a good time, why the hell am I over here doing something I hate? Uh-oh. Trouble. That kind of thinking leads to trouble. Because the internal war starts then. The one of me says, quit. The other says, look, I've been working on you for 55 goddamn years to get you to be responsible, you know? And now you're thinking about throwing away your job, trying a whole new flyer, doing something you know nothing about, having a good time. Will you just grow up? And then I'm stuck, and I can get support for both sides. From, I know who to call. I know what I'm going to get out of who I call from this side. I'll get, hey, take a flyer, go build boats, man, in Alaska. You'll have a great time. And over here on the other side, I'll get somebody to say, I agree with you, but I've got to hang in there. My God, you got to get some insurance, get a little stock put away, got to be fiscally responsible here. You can't keep running around like a kid all your life. Missed that one, didn't you? Okay. So, if you're going to take some notes away from this one I suggest that you write down and take away is, what if I was put here to have a good time? I mean, that was God's plan. That this is not some frivolous concept you have come up with while smoking hemp in a small enclosed quarters. That we were created and put here to have a good time. I don't know when am I supposed to break. What time is this supposed to be? What the hell is going on here? I don't know anything. I am lost. What time are we supposed to break? At 3 o'clock. Okay, well, I can certainly go till 3 o'clock with no problem at all. I can actually go till midnight, but we won't. No. Now, I got my baby here. I am going to go play with her when I'm done. That was an experience flying here with her. Boy, I'll tell you something interesting about children who haven't been stepped on. This was really wild. We got her, emotionally stepped on. I travel, all year. Like next year I'm going to do very, very little because it just burned my ass out. But it's like, so I'm always on planes and I'm always next to people. I have sat in airplanes next to people that were 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 380 pounds. Okay? I flew from Phoenix, Arizona to Seattle, Washington with my little daughter in the seat in between my wife and I, who is, 36 inches tall and weighs 30 pounds. But no one has stepped on this child's spirit. She takes up more space than a 5'6", 350 pound person. She is so big, this little person, that the amount of room she needs is staggering. It is just staggering. I got off the plane and I was completely exhausted. She had a wonderful time. It couldn't have been more fun. Picking which bathroom to use, which way to go up and down the aisle, what she'd eat off my tray, off of her mom's tray, off of her tray. It was just fun time in River City. The child's world is huge. I guarantee you show me an adult child from an alcoholic family and I will show you somebody whose world is small. Physically and emotionally, their world is small. They have kept pulling in order to survive. And their world is small. This child's world is huge. Huge. It's incredible to watch. I get to go home and do this again. One of the things that I'm thoroughly convinced about, and I was convinced about it at one level a long time ago, and I used to talk about it, but I hadn't really made the connection in between, is God created us as human beings so we could be human beings. One of the very first things we came and we arrived on this planet with was our feelings. So obviously a major part of my being a human being is being into my feelings. But yet my feelings are almost incompatible with everything that I was raised with. Not only within my home, but within those institutions that I encountered as a child growing up. Within the framework of the educational system that I was put into as a child. It was highly abusive and very destructive, particularly for me because I had an attention deficit. The reason I had an attention deficit is I was getting the shit kicked out of me at home, and you're careful before you answer questions, that's all. You just don't speak up and say, yeah, it's 4. You wait. You know, I think, well, why does she want to know? I mean, why does this broad want to know what 2 and 2 is, you know? And does she know, you know? Am I in trouble here, you know? Does she think it's 4 or does she think it's 5? I mean, what the hell's going to happen to me here? By the time you process that, they've called on the family hero from some other families. It's 4! And they send a note home how dumb you are, you know. So all the systems, nothing was supportive of what? What was I talking about? Of what? Feeling. Oh yeah, feelings. By the way, if in case no one has mentioned it this weekend, and I can't believe they haven't, because you guys have had a weekend of some of the best presenters around. I mean, some really super people. I mean, Bob Subby and Terry and Raquel and some of them are just knock me out. They're lovely. That the initial beginnings of this whole process is quite simply getting in touch with your feelings. I mean, that's where this all starts. That's where it all starts. And isn't it interesting, when we were born, we had all our feelings. And kids have all the feelings. They're not taught anger, sadness, joy. They got it. They can laugh so hard they'll fall over. Fall over. Fall over laughing. Right? I mean, my daughter can cry so hard her whole body quivers. Her whole body quivers. And when she gets mad, man, I mean, it's complete. You know? It can start and build, or it can start right at the top. It just depends on how angry she is over what has just happened. You know? And just throw herself backwards, you know, to get more space, right? And I watched the survival process in her as it began to work. I watched her, she'd blow and scream and yell and throw out her arms and then go. You know? Because a couple of times she'd been on the tile floor and a couple of times she'd been too close to the wall, you know, what, you know. And because she is truly a beautiful child of God, she has no intention of injuring herself while expressing her feelings. So, so I think on that note, it's a good note to take a break. Let's not injure ourselves while expressing our feelings, and then we'll be back at 3:15, right? 15 minutes, is that what we take? Great, okay. Has blonde hair and blue eyes. They don't look at her strange when she's with me, but they look at her strange when she's with her mother. That's, by the way, to finish this, I'll get to use one. That's like really just starting to blossom. The understanding that to honor our creative side is an essential part of recovery, a real important part of recovery. We get too serious, you know, about all this. Yes. She heard a tape of mine where I talked about being stuck in a hallway and not knowing where I was going, and having been stuck in the hallway for a while. And was there anything that I did that or am I still in the hallway? Did I get out of it, or am I sort of in it? I've been in a lot of hallways. I mean, I wind up in the hallway a lot, actually. Looking. Oh, yes. Well, no, my career definitely... Well, my career was changing. Okay, yes, all right. That's quite simple. It changed dramatically. I just packed my bags and left Hollywood is what happened. I just sort of said goodbye. Part of that was No, not part of it. All of it was attributed to doing this work, finding a sense of self, a sense of self-esteem, realizing how television was contributing to dysfunction, and that I had been part of that for a long time, and didn't know what to do about it, and I was starting to get a bad reputation because I was starting to get some self-esteem, so I no longer would just make changes in the script because some half-wit thought it was a good idea. Some 12-year-old at the network said, geez, I think the guy should be black. So I got the reputation of being a good writer, but hard to get along with. So when I left town, I wasn't sorry to go, and no one was trying to keep me there. So I wouldn't want to give anybody the impression that I left Hollywood with people clutching at my foot saying, oh, please stay and write for us. No, it was a mutual goodbye. I moved to New Mexico on my last bit of dollars, not knowing what I was going to do. A few months after that, I met my wife. We got married, conceived the baby. The money was running goodbye, gone, adios, no writing. I still couldn't go back. I mean, I could not go back and beg one more. I couldn't write another car chase, is really what it comes down to. And when we were about down to our last $1,000, a friend of mine approached me and said, look, I would like to talk to you about doing some workshops for adult children. You've been doing this stuff for 9 years now. He said, you have more information than anybody I know, and you've done more of the work personally than any presenter I've ever met. Would you do some workshops for us? Well, you got $1,000, you collect garbage, right? Also, it's the go through the open doors, and there was the open door. So yes, and so I did that for about 2.5 years now. I've been doing the workshops. The baby was born. I've written the book. It's been published. I'm working on the second book. But now I'm being pushed back into doing the movie and doing the screenplay, and it's really my home. I mean, that's what I am. I am a writer. I mean, at my core, I am a writer, and I love to express myself with words. I love to express it with a written word, and autographing my book and signing my book. I mean, I go in bookstores and buy my book. You know what I mean? This is a big thrill, it's my book. I wrote it. It's on a shelf. I could walk in Walden's and buy my book, So I don't want to appear to be cool about this because I'm anything but cool about it. It's got me right off the chart. And so I made that change, and that change was for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And now it seems to be I'm being pulled back. And I was told, oh, well, here we go. I was told by a channeled spirit 4 years ago that I was going to leave before I knew I was going to leave, 5 years ago, and that I would be back. And I would be back, and I would be back under better terms. Well, if this film is everything I think it's going to be, it will be a wonderful way to come home. It will be a hell of a way to go back into the creative community with a movie that will just rip people, open them up, and let them see the pain and cry and laugh and So yes, that's the sequence of events of my life. Yeah. Okay, this is a question about when I spoke a long time ago in '87. I've changed a lot since then, but what is it? How am I with my running in my feet? Well, okay, well, my feet are okay. I have my orthotics in my shoes. I can take them out and show them to you to prove I've been to my podiatrist like a good boy and my feet are corrected. My running doesn't exist. Bobby rides bicycles now because I have a tendency to be a little bit compulsive about things. And I took the running a little bit too far and really fucked up my knees. It was when I came dragging one leg in at the finish of the Honolulu Marathon and they took me to the emergency hospital, I thought, I think I better give this up for a while. And then, of course, still not having tremendous self-esteem, I picked a knee surgeon who probably got his degree at Earl Scheib's auto painting, not yet having the ability to seek and 3 or 4 opinions and find the best.
And so he did a bad job on the knees. So my knees are not in great shape. So I don't run. I bicycle, do a lot of exercise at the gym. And that's how I stay in shape. And I'm an absolute, I can't tell you how powerfully I believe in the necessity of some kind of good aerobic exercise as this recovery process. One of the reasons it's essential is the energy that you burn up in aerobic energy, in aerobic exercise, is the same energy that you use to create anxiety. So, if you burn off this energy in aerobic exercise, you won't have it left over to crank yourself up with. Because anxiety is many people's drug of choice in recovery. You know, you can't get loaded, so worry, right? And I mean worry. I mean really worry. So, please, if you can, walk. Walking is great. You know, that's what this damn doctor just told me in Lake Havasu. Walk. He said, I think you and your wife should take a walk. It's 220-minute miles would be fine. Of course, we walked 3 15-minute miles, but what the hell, you know. Yes? How one would go about doing memory work if one cannot afford a therapist? Well, I would really look for somebody with sliding scale. If you can't do that, a great way to do, if you've got a lot of loss of memory, it usually is recalled in the feelings rather than in the intellect. Therefore, when you get in touch with a specific feeling today, in other words, if you're in a situation somewhere and someone says something that hurts your feelings, and you really feel your feelings being hurt, then sit down at the first possible opportunity and with a pencil and a tablet and ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that way? Okay? And that will come to you, and write that time out. And then ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that way? And you will find often you can take that feeling all the way back through the black curtain into the lost memories. I mean, that was my path back, and I was someone who had 2 conscious memories from birth to age 15 when I started the work. 2 conscious memories. That was it. Falling out of a second-story window when I was 3, and winning a gold medal in the Junior Olympics when I was 12. That was it. That's the only things I could remember. And through tracing the feelings back, I can tell you about houses I lived in that I didn't even remember before, and what they looked like, and the color of the furniture, and what went on there, and where the pain, where the source of pain. So that's the method I would use. It's good if you could really, works better if you can find someone to do it with you. It's always nice if we have somebody else around. We're very good at isolating, okay? But if you can, get in a group. Find a therapist who does a sliding scale group or something. We do so good in groups. Groups are so good for us, Because, see, we live our whole life focused outside of ourselves. So we judge everybody by how they look. So it's really nice. We need to get in a group somewhere where somebody looks really together and they fall completely apart. It is so healing for us, It's like, oh, God, wow. I thought she had it hooked up. Her mascara is running down her nose, and, her pantyhose are falling off, and you go, wow, God, this is all right, let's go on. So that's very, very healing for us, because we are always focused outside. We believe the answer to everything lays outside of ourselves. See, that's the killing element in shame. If you're filled with shame, there is no self living inside. And if there is no self, there's no room for you. And if there is no you, then you don't believe you have the power or the capacity to change your life. So my rewards were always going to come to me outside. I will win the lottery. I will marry a rich woman. Someone will discover me standing on a corner and see me and know what a genius I am and take me to their company and pay me millions of dollars just to be there to guide them. I mean, it was always going to come outside of me. I never believed that I had contained within my being all that I need to have all the success I could ever want.
Yet that's the truth for every one of us. Everybody in this room has contained within their being right now all you will ever need to have all the success you could ever want. And it may be just as simple as the ability to ask for help when you need help. That's part of a functional person succeeding. See, they know how to ask for help. They know how to move on. So we have it. We just don't know it because we keep focusing out here. I am the clothes I wear. I am my hairstyle. I am the car I drive. And we live in a society. Didn't anybody talk about this stuff this weekend? I would think so. I mean, we live in a society that supports that concept. I mean, if we didn't, they wouldn't put numbers and letters on cars. It's true. There would be no need. But if you spent 65 grand for your BMW 635 CXI, when your next door neighbor spends 70 grand, they want him to have a BMW 635 CXII. Because they want both of you to understand the reality of the situation. He is, in fact, superior to you. And they want you to know that. Otherwise, if that wasn't part of the game, they'd just put out a car and it'd say Ford. And you would drive it. But it is more than a car. Yes? Did I bring my harmonica? And if I did, would I play it? This is horrible. He really booked me on this one. Did I bring my harmonica? I hope the baby has it. Let me get this guy's name, make sure if you see his registration again. This is so hard! No, I can't. No, just say no is not the answer here. Thank you for the advice, but believe me, it is not the answer here. Because my own personal goal in life is freedom. And to have to pull back and refuse to do this because I know I don't know how to play it at all. At all. Forget a little bit. At all. My choice would be to back out. But the freedom is to be who I am, and I am the best I am, and I know only what I know, you know? And that's the hard one, okay? So, part of my recovery in the last year has been giving myself permission to make noise. You know, make noise. I was for a long time, particularly when I was being battered as a child, until I got big, physically big, I was a lost child. Man, I was like a ghost, not heard. Then I became an angry adolescent, and I was real easy to spot. And then I became a recovering alcoholic, and I became more moved in the shadows again in my personal life, okay? So, in giving myself permission to make noise, I got a harmonica. So I want to learn how to play the harmonica. Unfortunately, in the town where I live, there's no one who plays harmonica. Or if there is, there's no one who can teach harmonica, so I haven't been able to get a teacher. So I got a videotape. Now, I've only watched about 10 minutes of the videotape here, okay? So this is as good as it gets. It's all I know, and I can't believe I'm doing this. Someone who is so cool for so many years is actually going to play an instrument they don't know a fucking thing about in front of a room full of people. This is very hard. That's it. That's all I know. And thank you very much, because that's very, very good for me to do that, you know. I'm very home up here running off the mouth. I'm not very much at home up here playing the harmonica. It moves me to new space, yes. How hard it is to surrender God when you what? When you come from an abusive household. It's almost impossible to surrender God when you come from an abusive household. But, okay, do I still believe in, oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, what the hell. Do I still believe in the 12 steps as a basic foundation? I believe that the 12 steps, for me, are an incredibly wonderful basic foundation of recovery from substance abuse. Okay? Because they worked. I'm standing here 28 years clean and sober. Okay? I have been clean and sober in 12-step recovery over half my life. Over half my life. I am not convinced that the 12 steps as written are as effective a tool for the adult child as they might be. I'm not too sure they might not lend themselves for people to easily abuse themselves with the same steps that the alcoholic recovers with. Okay? I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know. All right? I mean, I haven't come to a conclusion. I'm on the fence about it. I really am on the fence about it. Because if you're working the 6th and 7th step about character defects and shortcomings, and you've got any focus other than these are the things you did in order to survive, then you're being abusive. Okay? But that's not the way in which they're presented. You know? And the inventories, there's got to be two. What I did to you and what you did to me. Or I don't heal. I mean, I've got to write two inventories. So I believe it's a process of cleaning it up as you go. Now, how do you surrender to God if you come from abusive parents? That's a hard one. The first thing is to try and find a concept of God that works for you that's new. Okay? And this is where I would say to somebody, some of the metaphysical books that are out today are beautiful. And maybe your concept needs to be a warrior woman from some Native American tribe. Or maybe she needs to be a great witch, from understanding witch in the sense of the good witches, that a great witch from some metaphysical or some mythological time in the past. I mean, it's okay to do that stuff to heal. Find a concept of a God that's new to you that you haven't used before that's acceptable. You don't have to believe in the one I believe in, or the one the people next to you believe in, or the one that your parents believed in. And know that it's hard. People said to me in the beginning, turn it over. I said, to who? They said, God. I said, who's God? They said, he's your father. I didn't pray for 4.5 years. I didn't pray for 4.5 years. I figured, why? I'm going to get kicked in the head. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother. When I get to be a real good boy, then this God, my Father, will love me. But until I can be a real good boy, he won't. So be real patient with yourself, okay? It's a hard thing. Yes? Can I put this path to God in any kind of a time frame for someone who's very new? You got to the doors before they would open out here, didn't you? I'm glad you asked the question, because I believe that there is absolutely no such thing as a time frame on any of this for anybody, that each and every one of us is an individual, and we will go at our own pace. You know? With the amount of information available to us today, okay, 3 years from now, I expect to meet people as far along the path as I am who have been at it 3 years. And I will have been at it 31. I swear to God, I believe that. You know? But they're going to have to avail themselves of the information that is available. So, I want to leave you on this one. And just take it home with you. If you don't know it, I do know it. everybody in this room has within them the power to walk self and fly to the moon, and your courage for staying through a whole conference of information like this, which can be really disturbing to you. Give yourself credit for coming, for staying, for listening, and keep getting information. The key to recovery from dysfunction is information. Get information. Buy books, buy tapes, go to group, go to workshops. You know, people give you something. I know people, Sierra Tucson gets a rap about being expensive. You know, you bet your ass it's expensive. Why? Because it's the best program. It costs a lot of money. You got to tell the whole staff they can't smoke? Everybody's not going to stay. You know? I mean, it's okay. I've heard people say, my therapist just upped their rate $15 an hour. I don't think he's worth it. I always say, I don't care what he's worth. What are you worth? You know, I mean, it ain't about what they're worth. See? We have real trouble spending money on our own recovery unless it's unless we go shopping. You know? I mean, to really lay aside $350 and sign yourself up for an intensive weekend of grieving or anger and start cleaning out, that's a whole other ballgame. You'll find it easier to spend the $350 on something else. But if you're walking self, you'll spend it on the tools you need. So please, please, walk self, fly to the moon. Thank you. God bless you and your courage. Thank you very much. If you can't tell, I had a great time.
For further information on ordering cassettes, call Recovery Resources at 1-800-537-8273.
One of the essential parts of the process of ripping off these layers or peeling away the children, whichever level at it you're working on, is that everything that you do right now, for the most part, is something you've learned based on information that has been given to you by someone. So, the way to step out of the fog is to find out who's creating the fog. So if you go home, or if you're doing any processing, you sit down and you say to yourself, geez, I would like to believe in a God that put me here to have a good time. And immediately someone inside of you is going to say something. Don't have friends that they already are talking to her. Find out who it is. We can diminish the power of this old information we carry around as soon as we find out the source. But as long as it seems to be omnipotent, this information just appears inside of me, I never seem to be able to get rid of it. But when I can recall dear Mom saying, if you do that, God will punish you. Suddenly I go, aha, okay, I do not want to believe that anymore. Because I look at my family and say their beliefs did not work for them. My life is a result of the beliefs that were passed on to me by my family or my reaction to those beliefs. My reacting to, I should say, those beliefs. So please, in this work now, when you start to go to make God an integral part, anytime you start to get with a rigid God or a restricted God or a God that has rules or, or anything restrictive, find out who is it talking to you. I had someone come up to me in the line who is upset, or at least being a little bit set back by my language, and I had a long line and I didn't have time. If I had time, usually when someone comes to me with that, I always just have I like to honor what they feel and how they believe, because it's important. You're you and I'm me, and there's space for both of us, without either one of us having to change. And but I usually like to talk to people and find out if that's really how they feel. Or is it just something that's been part of their life and a device to cut off from information? A lot of good information comes in 4-letter words. I hate to tell you that, I mean, I love the fact that ostensibly a jury of old ladies in Florida threw out the 2 Live Crew case. I mean, an obscenity trial that went on in Florida. The jury was, a few nice old Jewish ladies and one black woman, and they threw the thing out. They said, "This is a joke. I mean, this is not. What are you guys trying to do?" See, that's another thing. We get so locked up, man, on stuff. God, we just like it's got to be my way. It's got to be in my frame of reference. It's got to be there's no right and wrong. Sorry, there's just different ways. Your way's not wrong, my way's not right. I do it different. That's all. I do it different. If you can start using different instead of right and wrong in your vocabulary, when you start to look at other people and how they do things or anything, just the word different. That person is different from me, not wrong, and they're not right. And you're not wrong, you're just different. That's a real healing word, different. Very, very healing word. I just choose to communicate with different words than you choose to communicate. Nobody's wrong. And because God hasn't struck me dead any of these times, I sort of really don't think it's in the agenda of importance on a global scale, Okay. So, I read some of Matthew Fox, and I start ripping out some of the underpinnings of the old spiritual beliefs. I begin to accept the concept that, yes, there's room for a self, a feeling, crying, angry, laughing human being and God in the same body, and that is a powerful combination, and let's go live life, yahoo! And about a week after that happens, I run into a guy at a workshop who says to me, "What are you up to?" I said, "Well, I'm still doing these workshops, but I'm really getting tired of traveling." I said, "I got to get back to writing, some movies or something." And I said, I've optioned a couple of books, and And I said, one in particular I'd really like to get made in a movie, but I've just put it aside for now. I just can't get cranked up on it. Is John Lee's book, Flying Boy, Healing the Wounded Man. And, so my friend says to me, "God, I really like that book." "Oh, thank you very much." He says, "I really like that book." This is first aid here. I took an antihistamine before I came down, and my lips are just about gone. All fluid is leaving my body. No, don't, Bob. Okay. Has anyone ever taken a lot of Sudafed to fly to keep their ears open when they've had sinus? I mean, you stay locked in the bathroom in pain, Part of the body's saying, get rid of all the fluid, rid of all the fluid. The other part of the body's saying, don't let it go, you're going to die, So it's like, okay, that's enough of that joke. All right. So for instance, God, I really love that book. Maybe we can put something together. I'll call you in a little while. So anyway, I'll make a long story short. He called me with a couple of friends of his, and we're underway. I'm working on the script. We got the money to make the movie. We'll make the movie, and maybe we can put a movie out there that really has something to say about men and women and their relationships and why they can't have. So now, see, that's how I understand God, right? I wasn't looking to make it happen. In fact, I'd fired my agent like the day before. I wrote him a letter saying, thanks, I don't even know if you're still alive. You'd have to be in the business to understand that joke. But anyway, and so it's like, it walks in the door, and says, here, Bob. So I know that's got to work, because if you want a piece of philosophy towards spiritual living and spontaneous living, it's go through the open doors. Okay? Make that your life motto. Go through the open doors. Okay? We have real facility for seeing the closed one, Yeah, I see that one, but just give me a minute with this wall over here. Because I know what's on the other side of this wall is really good, And if you don't pay some sort of terrible price, how can it be fun? So this whole thing being put in front of me is going through the open door. The door opens and I'm walking through. And I have been doing the integrating of the adolescent, the healthy, beautiful, alive adolescent boy who is God, who is the power, who is spiritual and beautiful. The child, I've connected with that child whose connection with God has been invincible from the beginning. And I get home, and I get the deal all. It's a couple of weeks before we get the deal all put together. All the bullshit and the lawyers and the papers and all that's got to go on. And get all that done. And I'm sitting quietly at home. And out of the deepest part of my being, a voice says to me, Bob, you know that down at the very underpinnings of your being, you still believe that mediocrity is the best camouflage. And I said, uh-oh. Therefore, great success will never be yours, because you can't let yourself have it, because it moves you into the limelight. It moves you out of mediocrity. And what success you get, you can't enjoy, because then people will hate you. If they see you successful and having a good time, they will really hate you. And there's a crystal palace up there, but there's a guardhouse with a roaring, monster in front of it. And it's your monster, and it's their monster. They don't want you to go. I said, right. Well, this is good news. After 11 years of therapy and, it's 175 intensive days of something somewhere, I'm sure, all wrapped up together and crying and dying and anger and crawling and bawling and, all the rest of it, that the underpinnings are still there, right? The very bottom. So I said to myself, okay, I don't want, I'm done with this bullshit. Screw mediocrity. I want it all. I absolutely want it all. I want good health. I want lots of money. I want to have a good time. I want to win a couple of Oscars for movies that I write. I want it goddamn all. Right? And then suddenly I feel this part of me inside gets panicked. A fear goes through me, man, like somebody who had a gun at my head saying, I'm going to kill you. I just went, and I said, trouble in River City. So I set out about, I don't know, my wife would remember, 3 weeks ago, I said to myself, okay, let's go get it. Let's go after this mediocrity is the best camouflage belief system and get rid of it because it was a gift from my family. I am the child of 2 civil servants. Okay? Enough said? My father was an alcoholic accountant for the GAO, for the General Accounting Office. I mean, he was like a 15 or whatever the hell they were. He would have had to murder a nun on the White House lawn to get fired, you know? I mean, he was there forever, right? So it's like I don't have to wonder where I got this belief system. I know where I got it. So now I sit down. I get myself the tapes. I get powerful affirmation tapes. I get books on affirmations. I get audible and subliminal tapes on affirmation. I mean, I just say, all right, guys, here we go, right? And I begin to go after this stuff. I begin to bring into myself a belief system that says I have the right to everything. Well, about a week into this, I'm in the doctor's office in Lake Havasu dying, right? I mean, my stomach is killing me. I want to throw up, and I can't. I mean, I'm on my knees at the toilet, and then I got burning acid, the heart palpitations, my blood pressure's through the roof. I got muscle spasms in my leg and in my back and in my neck, and I got every allergy I've ever had has gone completely berserk. My sinuses are under attack, and I can't breathe. I'm sitting in this doctor's office. This guy knows nothing about nothing. He just happens to be a good diagnostician, you know, and I'm sitting there, and I'm saying, you know, his stomach's a little upset, you know. He says, well, you look like a guy stressed out to me. He says, you know, what are you doing? Nothing, you know, listening to a few tapes, reading a couple of books. Home with my wife and baby, it's, you know, okay. I called a good friend of mine and he said to me, you know, Bob, when you get to the bottom of the barrel and you attack the unconscious, when you go after the very, very bottom of the belief system, it's war. And it will do, because you have relied on it all your life, it will do anything it can to stop you. So I've been basically physically sick for 3 weeks now. I mean, one way or another. My stomach in fits, muscles, necks, back, spasms like crazy. Sinuses gone off the chart. And I have thrown everything holistically at them I know about, everything homeopathic I know about them, and I've even thrown everything traditional I can get at them, you know, over the counter and prescription and otherwise. I have hit it with everything. Forget it. Forget it. It is that resistance to that final step of moving into what I believe is the spiritual place I was once intended to walk before the damage starts. So it's almost as if this child inside of me who has the pure connection to God is saying, okay, let's get this last bit of rubble out of the way. And then away we go. And I want to tell you, this last little bit of rubble is really entrenched. And that's why I said earlier, it is really important, based on my experience of what I'm going through right now, identify where the information you give yourself came from. Because when it's omnipotent, it comes to me out of the air, I give it so much power. And the minute I can put the church to it, oh, I remember Reverend, you know, Bum Dick saying that to me, you know, and now the power's gone. Now the power's gone. The minute I can identify it, the power's gone. See, if I'm sure they covered all this stuff this weekend. I mean, all you're operating on is your belief system here. And your belief system is information that you got from your parents, from the school system, and from your peer group, and from other relatives around you as your child growing up. By the time you're 12, you were dead meat. Usually by the time you're 2, but by the time you're 12, it was over. your racial prejudices, your sexual prejudices, your any bigotry you had, everything was already all entrenched. It was all based on information given to you by outside sources. You know, on information given to you by outside sources. So identify the voices. Identify the voices. If my own experience with all this stuff is valid, then, and I believe I'm going to get through this. Don't think for 3 seconds I think it's going to stop me. And my wife, God bless her, you know, it's like, whoa, it's hard being with me right now. It's really hard being with me last night. I fell a little more in love with her last night. I was looking at her sitting in front of me at the banquet table, and I was just thinking about, you know, she's just been quietly there while this 3 weeks has been going on, and I've been I'm telling you, I'm walking around like a zombie, like somebody who's, you know, just like looking for them to come through the windows with guns, you know. I was like, and trying to write at the same time, too, and I always sort of move into another space when I'm writing. I thought, God, she's just been there for me and held me and loved me and encouraged me and, you know, driven me to the doctors, and I thought, gee, you know, and it's something somebody said or something in one of the songs about loving someone, and I thought, and I just looked at my wife, and just in that moment of looking at her, I just fell a little more in love with her. It's nice, you know, if you're in a relationship, if you look at the person that you're in a relationship with, that'll do a lot for your relationship right there. If you just take a couple of minutes to look at them, you know? I mean, we can get into a place where we walk around the house and we don't see the people that we live with for days on end. And if you just sit down at one moment and when they don't know you're looking, and just look at them and see who they are, see who this person is that you're with. You may find they're really better than you think while you're busy packing your bag in your mind. You know, it may just be you're packing your bag because you haven't seen them lately and don't really know how wonderful they really are. Or it may also conversely make you look at the reality of your situation and set you free. And set you free. Because we can live in some terrible situations, and if we don't look, we stay. If we don't identify the source of the information, we stay. See, I am thoroughly convinced with all this stuff going on now, it's been going on for a long time, but it's really kind of taken up, you know, supersonic speeds now with, you know, primal scream therapy and Gestalt therapy and ACA therapy, inner child work, body work, Rolfing, you know, nutrition, exercise, all the stuff that's out there now. I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt are tools that are being given to us by a God that loves us, because it is these tools that bring us back to the place that God had originally intended for us to be when we started out in the first place. Okay? It is the crying and the screaming and the body work and just sitting in these groups, you know, these ACA groups, whether it's a private group therapy. And I am a major proponent of individual and group therapy. I mean, I think we need help with this stuff, a lot of us, and I think we need professional help. We need people who know what they're doing. And I think, you know, it's nice to find people who have done their own work. That helps. There are a few suspect therapists out there working. I remember once I was at a conference and this woman said, make sure that whoever you go to has at least a master's degree. I thought, boy, she hasn't met some of the, you know, shrinks I've met, you know. I've met a few of MDs, man, who are in court being, you know, prosecuted by their patients. So I don't think that's the credential. Try to see how you feel with the person and go from there. Okay, let's get back to children and God, because this is what this one's all about. I want to share a story now about my daughter, which really was an eye-opener for both my wife and I about the connection of the child, the power of the child, and particularly the power of the child if it hasn't been stepped on. I use the term stepped on because I've always felt like I had this wonderful spirit as a child, and Mom and Dad had this big shoe and it just came down on it, you know, and slammed it. And when I hit age 5, I hit the system, and they finished, you know, the job. Sit in that seat, you know. If you want to go to the bathroom, raise your hand. You know, we just had a thing with my wife's brother. His son raised his hand to go to the bathroom in school, and they told him no. Teacher told him no. She wanted control. Of course, then they had to deal with his dad, which I'm sure was really a lot of fun. Sorry, I missed it. I wish I could have been there to help him. So about 12 months ago, when my daughter was 22 months old, we went for a walk at night. Her name is Alexandra, but she prefers her nickname, which is Sasha. So she refers to herself as Sasha. An aspect of the beauty of the child is this. Often at home, she will walk into a room, and she enters the room and says, "I'm here!" I mean, man, I snuck through parties, you know? I mean, I was like moved along the wall, you know? I mean, I was like as low profile as humanly possible. This kid, "I'm here! Sasha's here!" You know? And just walks in beaming. When's the last time anybody here walked into a room and said, "I'm here"? Try that at your home group next week. "I'm here!" Somebody will abuse you. Not because they're bad people, just because they don't know any better. A lot of people, wonder, because a lot of people, the heretic, right, the Antichrist. I absolutely love and adore the program Alcoholics Anonymous. It saved my life. It's the table on which I do all the rest of this work. It's my chosen family. That is my family of choice. I just happen to think my family is big enough. Bob Subby says the same thing. We both believe the family is big enough to take a little criticism and not fall apart. That's all. A lot of very profound things were said by the founders, and they've been sort of misplaced. Bill Wilson said, "Once upon a time, AA has got to continue to change, or we'll die." I don't know, where they missed that one, but anyway, okay. Turn left again, yes, I actually said turn left again, right. Okay, back to the baby. So, let's see, how am I gonna do this? Well, I just stand here. Okay. So we're out walking. We live in the desert, and we're out walking at night, and it's a full moon. And we're walking up the road. The mesas are out behind our house. We live out away from stuff. And so and she's doing what she calls walk self. Sasha calls it walk self. I'll walk self. She says walk self. Walk self quite simply means do not touch me. It means do not guide me with your fingers on the back of my head. Do not guide me with your fingers on my shoulder. Do not touch my sleeve. Don't put your hand on my back, and do not hold my hand. Walk self. So she's busy in between Mom and I, walking self up the road towards the mesas. And we're looking at this full moon up there, and suddenly she just starts going like this with her arms, like an old-fashioned lawnmower. She goes, oh, Sasha's flying. He goes, oh, Sasha's flying through the air. She goes, oh, Sasha's holding the moon. And Tina and I looked at each other, and we started to bawl. I mean, the tears were just streaming. We said, my God, you know what? This child's spirit may be so free that she, in fact, just flew to the moon. So off of that, I'm convinced every one of us were put here with a walk self, fly to the moon spirit. And if it's been a while since you walked self, and it's been a while since you flew to the moon, then that's what these conferences and this work is about. It is about returning home to that spirit, that walk self, You're not concerned about what others think or do. You don't wait for somebody else to come in the room to find out how you feel. You are who you are, and you walk so. And when you choose, you can set your spirit free and let it soar to the moon. This is the power. Because I watch this power in my own child. I watch her do this stuff. It's constant with her. It's like, jeez. You know, probably the biggest question I have all the time is, where does she get this stuff? You know? It's like, where does she get that? You know, I like, look at my wife. Like, where does she get this? You know? What's going on now? Who's she talking to now? All right? Okay. Any questions? I'll take a couple of questions before I go into the last 30 minutes. If anybody's got one that's burning, yes. It's number 2. This one first. Does the inner child talk to me? Yes. Did you want to know how the inner child talks to me also? Ah, okay. That's another question. It was the child that talked to me. The most recent example I can think of it was the child that talked to me that said, we believe mediocrity is the greatest camouflage in the world. Time for it to go. How do I know it's a child talking to me? Because all the sound comes up instead of down in my being. In other words, sound comes up instead of down. So I have a sense of feeling lifted. And when it's my friends talking to me, I always have a sense of being hammered down instead of lifted up. It's my best yardstick for knowing the difference. Being lifted up. My world gets bigger when my child talks to me. My world gets smaller when my mind talks to me. Yes? Well, you actually, okay, that's a good one. What if you're a Christian and you got your belief system from reading the Bible? I'm going to... That's lovely. That's lovely. Someone said I don't have to have all the answers. The is because right now I live in a small community of 12,000 people in which 10% of the people vote at election time, and it is controlled by churches. It's controlled by rigid fundamentalist churches. So I'm like, you know, I'm trying to be nice here. And not react because of my own current living situation and the oppression and the things I see. You know, the oppression of the women, the oppression of the children, the abuse, the accepted abuse in the name of God. You know, we were at the playground the other day and some little boy did something and her mother grabbed him by the arm and yanked him and said, "How do you think Jesus would have done that?" And I thought, who the hell cares? Right? He might have kicked the little kid. Who knows what he would have done? I mean, all we got is some writer's interpretation 35 years after it was over. Have you ever passed a story on for 35 years? Okay. If I was sitting with a friend of mine who asked me that question, I would say it would be really, really advisable to sit down and take the time to see if your belief system stems from what you read in the Bible or from the interpretation that was given to you by the people around you at the time you read the Bible. I don't mean, but I do see that. I live in the middle of it. I see the oppression. I see the sad-eyed children. I see the death in the eyes of the people, all in the name of God, and it's very upsetting to me. It's very, very upsetting to me. It makes me really angry. I see the women. It's upsetting. It really upsets me. You know, and there's a real strong movement going on right now too. We got two movements going on. It's you got the New Age movement going, right? And then you got a reaction to that, which is staggering, awesome. So, and that's to be expected. And in the end, I think everything's going to be really pretty okay. I certainly hope so. Or we'll be living in Costa Rica or somewhere. But. It's hard. If you had a real rigid religious background, I want to tell you, breaking that stuff is lethal. Lethal. That stuff is embedded in you. I mean, like they did a good job. If you want a great book about that, or about aspects of that, buy Alice Miller's book, For Your Own Good. You hear the people that read it? Oh, yeah, oh, great. It'll take you about a year and a half to read it. 12 pages long. It's just upsetting as you go. But she points out in there, like people like Rudolf Hess, who was the commandant of Auschwitz prison, was not raised to be a commandant of a concentration camp. I mean, his mom and dad didn't say, hey, let's raise this little bugger to kill a couple of million people. They raised him to be a priest. He was raised to be a priest. Okay, somebody else had a hand up. I saw 130. Yes. Oh, very good. When will there be some books out by all the people that spoke to you about their own kids who they're raising? Because, Raquel has a little Sasha, too. Raquel. There's a lot of books out there, actually. There's a lot of really pretty good books out there. I'm trying to think of the names of some now. Growing Up Again, Models of Love by Barry and Joyce Vissel. Growing Up Again, there's one on building self-esteem in your child. How to talk to kids so kids listen, and how to listen to kids. Adult children, raising children. Pick Up Your Socks. I already don't like the title. But it might be a wonderful book. I mean, it's just like, what? I'm writing a book now called Walk Self on a lot of the stuff I'm learning from my daughter, but it's not really about parenting. What it is, this book is bringing together the best of New Age metaphysical community and the best of codependency recovery, because both communities need each other desperately. And they're like both missing the boat, in my opinion. We who are recovering from codependency don't know where the hell the light is or how to find it, and the New Age people stepped into it without taking themselves along. So I'm trying to show both camps that they really got a lot to give each other, and that if you put it together, because I'm one of them, I'm one of hours, I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning, meditate for 4 hours before I left the house, and I, chanted and omed, and, got dizzy walking around the lake at Self-Realization Fellowship, and, I've got my crystals, so it's bringing a marriage between the two. Yes. Is my inner child real? Is it me? Is it something that once existed for me? Or is my inner child God? I believe the inner child is God, but it is more comfortable for me to believe that it is through my inner child that God speaks to me. Am I being really clear with that? Because it's very clear to me. I have physical memories. of being that inner child who is spiritually connected to God in purity. I have no conscious memory. I have physical memory. And in specific moments, in some kind of spiritual setting, there will be a physical memory of light. It's almost like sparkles. The child does remember, but I don't have a conscious memory of it, no. It's a tingling sensation in the body, a lightness of being. A lightness of being. It's as if my body is lifted from me and there is but a small, sparkling little being for a moment. Fleeting moment. I have talked with people who claim to have spent much more time in that state. I'm not in a position to argue with them. And I do check their medicine cabinets when they make that statement. A book about getting in touch with your creative self. Well, she's writing one, yeah, and that's the work she's going to do with this. My wife is an artist, and she is about 15 years in recovery, and her ability to be true to her creative nature, she believes, put her in God's lap and set her free from the pain and gave her all the strength that she needed to recover. So she's a real advocate of getting to your creativity and doing it, and particularly women, find themselves in some kind of role that is anything but creative, and getting to it and finding out what it is. And she takes women often like on these trips out to godforsaken places in the middle of nowhere to just paint. There's nothing there to do but paint. Out in the, I don't know, oh, she's giving me this. I guess she doesn't want to go out there and find 3,000 people tramping through the hills. Must share now. Well, let me finish this up. So, and anyway, and there are, I'm trying to think if there's a good book on it. Do you know of a good book on it? There really isn't one, is there, that I've seen? You're honoring your creativity doing it. Stand up. Everyone wants to see who you are. Get on the chair. Do you know of a book? Yeah, it's in the computer, she says. Yeah, it's being worked on. We plan on printing it ourselves. It'll be out the first of next year.
This is the end of side A. Please turn the cassette over to begin side B.